Welcome, Dancing with the Stars fans. We're recording this the day after Disney night, and we're here to discuss the latest developments in the ballroom. I'm Daniel Montgomery, here with Joyce Eng and Cordell Martin. And the big news at the end of the night was that there was no news. No one was eliminated. Disney magic saved everyone. Joyce, you were writing about the possibility about this over the last week. What did you think about the announcement at the end of the show and how that was handled?
I thought it was very obvious since they kept padding the show with all those special numbers and that throws into routine and that weird clip package before they even got to the elimination. But yeah, like I said last week in ABC's press release touting this week, they did not mention any elimination at all. And in all of their other releases, including the one they released today for next week, they mentioned elimination. So it wasn't very hard to read between the lines. And obviously last year they didn't have one on Disney night either. And then, of course, they were crunched for time at the end and they started rolling the credits. So if you didn't get it by then exactly. I don't know. I can't help you there. So
yeah, it was at the when they came back from that last commercial break, I remember Tom and Aaron were saying, and we're getting to the hard part we all dread, and Aaron was like, "Oh yes, this is so difficult," and I was like, "I love you, Aaron, but you are not an actress." It was kind of obvious that they were kind of going nowhere with that, especially when they had a clip package saying here's all the contestants begging not to be eliminated.
Yeah, I was like, why did you guys even bother filming that?
Exactly. I feel like the contestants knew too. They have.
Oh yeah, definitely they knew. Yeah, especially the pros. If the celebrities didn't know, the pros definitely knew.
Yeah, but unlike last year, because I went back and looked at last year's recap that I wrote up, they did announce a bottom two last year, and they
ran out of time this year. They had to show that package.
Yeah, so this year, they're doing actual bottom twos, but last week they just put two random people in jeopardy and said no, everyone's safe. Which I'm glad. I'd rather they do it this way. Better get the little padding than some unnecessary. It's you're in danger and now you're not. Yeah. Although it would have been nice to know who was actually in the bottom two based on tonight's voting and scores, because that would be very instructive for next week. What did you think about that, Cordell?
Yeah, to you guys' point, I kind of figured they were going to do the whole fake out thing just because it's Disney week. Also, I think it might be a little strategic on their end. So will they count the scores from this week for next week as well on top of the judges' scores?
Presumably, yeah, because no one was eliminated based on tonight on this week's scores or on the votes. So presumably they would just
they did that when Ray withdrew too. So they just added both weeks. So
maybe that might be the way to get Sean Spicer in the bottom two next week. So
yeah, because he won't have a sentimental story 2 weeks in a row probably. And honestly, it's in the live blog, I make a point of whenever he's the president tweeted at me how cool is that? It's oh yeah, he is a criminal and destroying democracy, and good for you that you're buddies. But this week I was just you know what? I mean, everyone has parents. Everyone loves their not everyone loves their parents, but most of us love our parents. And I mean, I feel bad for the guy in that regard because, I mean, that's just a human thing. Mm-hmm. So, but at the same time, I don't want that being the reason he stays. So
I do think it's good in a sense that it was he told that story this week on a non-elimination because next week some people might have forgotten about it. Mm-hmm. So, because I do think that definitely tugged at the heartstrings. I mean, it's very sad. And, especially since they went to Disneyland, right before he died, it was kind of on the nose, even though obviously it did happen and it's sad. So yeah, maybe because I feel if they had a bottom two and eliminated somebody, I feel that would have helped him like escape the bottom two, but next week maybe, you know, it's like everyone has short-term memory now. Like they've already forgotten like what they danced like 2 weeks ago. So so that might maybe help put him at the bottom two next week, just that there was no elimination this week.
Yeah, I sort of don't think that if there had been a bottom two, or if they'd announced who the bottom two was, I don't think Sean Spicer would have been there. Yeah. I personally would have guessed that it would have more likely been the two Sambas, Karamo and Lauren, probably landing, or maybe
Lauren was so overscored.
Yes, she was.
that was like all over the place. I don't know what was happening there.
Oh, and that wig. Jesus, take the wig.
Yeah, that was like she's a very pretty girl, but that did her no favors.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that was like the Amber Heard like Aquaman red wig thing going on there.
And I also felt like that dance like would never end. Did you guys feel that way?
Yeah.
Because they just kept going to like random parts of the floor, and it wasn't really a samba. I was like, "What is happening?" I don't know. Like,
and the parts that were samba were the most flawed.
Yeah.
And I felt bad because I mean, you know, the samba is a beast. Like no one wants to get the samba ever. Especially, I think she was following like immediately after Ali's contemporary.
Yeah,
too,
which is like the easiest thing to do in the world.
Oh yes.
So. Yeah, so I was like, oh, this poor girl can't win, and I feel like she probably would have landed Karamo definitely would have landed in the bottom.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
he was drastically overscored. I love Karamo, but he was he was genuinely good last week, and he got the right scores last week. I think he got sevens. This week he got sevens again, but it wasn't as good a performance. So I feel like he should have gone back to sixes, which would have been fair. And I feel like everyone was a little overscored. Like, I feel like Karamo should have gotten sixes, and Sean Spicer should have gotten fives, and, you know, we shouldn't have seen nearly as many nines as we saw.
And Hannah should not have gotten that 7 from one.
No.
Yeah, the one score that was
like that could have been an 8.
Too low.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was like that all night, like giving one fewer point than all of the other judges gave, which is understandable. Like, honestly, when he douses cold water on the other judges, sometimes it's welcome because Carrie-Anne and Bruno can get carried away and bring out the big scores a little too early and a little too readily. So I like that he's a little bit picky, but that 7 was like he gave that the same score as Karamo. Like,
yeah, no, it's exactly like Leah Remini last week with the 7s for James.
I appreciate the Leah Remini 7 because
but that's only because he ended up getting 4s.
Yeah, exactly. That felt like a deliberate protest 7 because she knew how Lamar was getting lowballed, so it felt like purposeful in a way that this just felt like Len scoring a performance that only he saw.
I wonder if like I mean I know like it's all like sort of scripted in a sense, like it's, you know, like an act of them like picking on him because he's the curmudgeonly guy, but between like last week of like Leah keep like, you know, cutting him off, and then like this week like Tom did it twice. Like he just kept like effing with him, and especially like the last dance, I'm like, Tom, you already know you're running late, and then you're gonna come off again and like not let him finish. Like it was just way too much. It's like, yeah, like have your fun, but like relax.
Yeah, when Len gets annoyed, like, I mean, Len gets annoyed easily, but, you know, there are times where it's like, okay, he's got a point. Yeah. Like, he'll play the Disney villain, but let him actually say his thing and not have everyone jump on over him, you know, making fun of him for saying, like, frippery, which, by the way,
I just hate
a real word. Like I was quoting him when I was doing the live blog, and like the spell check didn't like flag it. Like it's a real word, and spell check flags words that are real. So the fact that it didn't even flag that.
But like I also hate when people just keep constantly interrupting other people who are talking. Like you do it once and you maybe go off on a tangent, but then when they're trying to get back on track, let them finish their thought. You're like, you're on live TV. Like it happens on talk shows too. Like Jimmy Fallon does this all the time. Like when he does his interviews, and like just get back on track. You know you don't have enough time, and like let him say his critique to these people who want to improve for next week. Like shut up.
Exactly.
Yeah. And honestly, I feel like the dancers, the contestants, you know, even if they're like, you know, get their feelings hurt a little bit by Len, they would rather hear what he has to say.
Oh yeah, like most of them definitely want to hear it.
Yeah, because he's the one, honestly, if you impress Len, then if you impress Len, then you're going to have Carrie Ann and Bruno just, unless you did an unauthorized list, your pinky toe came off the floor or something like that. You're going to have the other judges.
In your starting position.
Exactly.
Well, I think in general, I really liked the season started a lot more conservative with the scoring, but I feel like this week they kind of abandoned that immediately, where it's just like, as soon as those 9s came out for Allie, it's like they were just like the floodgates open. It's like, get a 9, you get a 9, everybody gets a 9. And I feel like we lost some of the perspective where like dances were getting 8s that wouldn't have gotten 8s a week or 2 ago. Like those 9s were coming out really fast and furious. Like if I'm being honest, I love James Van Der Beek. I think that Paso was an 8, not a 9. So like I was with Len on that one. Whereas with Hannah, I thought that was a 9 and not a 7. But in general, it feels like they're a little too high. I feel like we're going to get those 10s sooner rather than later now. They've kind of broken out of that rut. What did you think,
I feel like they would probably wait maybe 2 more weeks before they bust out the 10s, because they are trying to be more strict. And I looked at last season and they busted out the 9s in week 2 and the 10s in week 3. So and that was a perfect 30 for Juan Pablo in week 3. So I feel like they'll probably pace themselves. You'll probably see more 27s next week.
Yeah, I remember when I was comparing this to a Disney Live Night from a few seasons ago, because one thing I want to discuss is how James Van Der Beek performed the same dance style to the same movie and the same music as Riker Lynch in season 20.
I mean, listen, that music is great for a paso.
It's great for a paso, but it's you
just need to pick new movies. That's all.
Movies. Honestly, another dance that would have been great for that, like an Argentine tango or something like that. That would have been great too. Just mix it up a bit. But then I look back at that season 20. That was Disney night. That was week 5, just like this one. And there were half a dozen 10s given out over the course of that night. So it was much more 10 happy than they are now. I hope we will still have to wait for those 10s this season, but I worry that it'll end up being like last week, where they end up with this bottleneck at 9, where they give so many 9s that you have a 4-way tie for the first place on the leaderboard again, and there's no difference between anyone anymore. So what do you think the scores are on pace in a good way, Cordell, or a little bit too higher?
I would say this week was a little interesting, just because the first couple of weeks they've been very conservative in their scoring. I guess maybe because it was just Disney night, and maybe the contestants and the pros probably knew there wasn't an elimination. I just felt overall the contestants seemed at ease with their performance, aside from Lauren. I don't know what
basically anyone who got a samba. No one is ever comfortable with a samba.
But in terms of just the scoring, I think what they're trying to do is definitely make it more competitive than it really is. Because I know that James and Hannah are the 2 to beat, and they're probably the ones just running away with the fan votes. So the fact that they're consistently lowballing them each week, I think they're trying just to play this competitive game that there's more people actually vying for the mirror ball. Aside from James and Hannah.
Yeah, it's interesting. This is the 3rd week in a row that Allie Brooke has had the top score on the leaderboard, either alone at the top or tied at the top. And yet she still feels like kind of not an afterthought, but it's like you don't look at her as the front runner. She's not getting that kind of play, even though she got a contemporary, which is she won the lottery by getting a contemporary. So you'd think that they'd want to set someone up like James or Hannah with the contemporary first, just to kind of solidify them if they wanted to do that. But it feels like they are trying to mix it up a bit.
Yeah.
I'm starting to think if maybe we should eliminate the contemporary from the show, or if not,
get rid of contemporary and jazz. Like, there's
or
if
not that, then save them for like maybe the top 5 when you already know it's the cream of the crop and they're going to be good at most anything anyway. Because it is such a gift to give someone a contemporary, and to only give one person a contemporary on a particular night this early. It's like and Ally Brooke was very good. Like, I don't want to take anything away from her. She didn't choose it.
But there's no rules. Like, it's like the whole purpose of the show and like ballroom is to learn the technique.
Yeah. I think the other option is that, because I don't want to make it seem like they're contemporary is no holds barred, anyone can do it. I want to see, if they do contemporary dances, swap out a couple of the judges, put in Mandy Moore, Travis Wall, people who like are contemporary specialists, and then we might actually hear more about like the technique and the choreography and what went into it and what could have been done better. And we might get more detail about actual contemporary dance instead of just like look pretty, wave your arms and do a nice lift, which is what basically it amounts to.
And wear like a flowy dress. Like,
and a flowy dress.
It's always a flowy dress.
Cry if you can. It always helps to cry.
Emotional song choice, and you're golden.
Yeah. Although I will say that Ally Brooke, that contemporary routine, I felt like the Len watching that, because they were on the stairs for like the first. They felt like they were on the stairs for like the first half of that song. And I'm like,
honestly, there was a lot of weird use of the stage the entire night from a lot of couples. Mm-hmm. Like even James, it was just, I don't know.
Yeah, I expected to hear Len on that contemporary talk about the messing about. That is like the definition of messing about. It's contemporary. It's you're golden on a contemporary dance. There's no reason to put off the choreography by waving your arms on a staircase for half a minute. Just like get into the contemporary dance. So that's one thing that I would have knocked the Sasha's choreography for a little bit there. So what do you think will happen next week in terms of elimination? Will it be a double elimination, or will that happen later in the season, Cordell?
I'm hoping for a double elimination, but I think they're probably going to wait a few more weeks before they pull that out. In terms of who I think will probably be in the bottom or in jeopardy, I'm hoping it's Sean, but after last year's debacle, I'm not holding my breath. So, but I think Karamo is definitely someone who will probably be in the bottom. And if Sean's not there with him, he'll be the one going home. As to who will join him, I have a weird feeling Sailor is going to make an appearance in the bottom two, either next week or the week after. She's a solid dancer, but she's just not standing out. Like Lauren has the personality, Ally has the dance ability and the personality, and then Hannah and James, they have the dance ability and James has the personality, and Kel is just that contestant that people love to root for. He's the underdog. And Kate is also someone that, has her fans too and just has the personality and sticks out too. But Sailor's just kind of like there, and each week I love.
And she opened the show this week.
I know, and
she opened the show, and I've already
you've already forgotten about her.
Exactly.
I forgot what movie she danced to, style of dance it was. I believe it was.
It was Cinderella.
It was Cinderella.
They met Cinderella at Disneyland. Don't you remember?
Okay. I'm looking up. It was a Viennese waltz. I had forgotten it was a Viennese waltz. And so, it just felt like it was a really great dance for the song and a great dance for the film.
Yeah,
but
she's
it was
good.
Also, it was also exactly the wrong kind of dance in terms of getting her out of her shell, because that was the kind of dance that you can do the steps and look pretty to, but it's not something that's really going to show off her personality and her energy and her emotion. So, I do think she's at risk. I agree that Karamo... Sadly, I think no matter what happens tomorrow or what anyone scores tomorrow, I think Karamo is almost guaranteed one of those bottom two spots.
Yeah.
And his survival in the competition depends on who he's there with.
Yeah, because if Sean is there, Karamo's staying.
Yep. Yeah. But if literally anyone else is there with Karamo, like based on the scores throughout the season and their trajectory of the dancers, especially Karamo had a bit of a setback this week with the samba. They're not going to keep him over anyone else unless he gets like perfect 10s next week.
Well, the bad news for Karamo is that next week he has the rumba, so he has back-to-back hip dances.
Oh.
So they're either, you know, like they just want to. It's like some like conspiracy to get him out. Like I don't know. Like
poor
like
baby.
that is rough.
Yeah, I mean,
what's dancer Sean dancing?
Sean has the Viennese waltz, and Sailor has jazz.
okay, so they're setting up Sailor for potential success depending on the choreography.
I mean, Sean can probably do the Viennese waltz.
Yeah. You know, say what you will about Sean and you know, his being a propagandist for a wannabe dictator. His quick step, I thought the quick step was going to be a disaster area with him, but it was actually...
It was okay.
He was actually okay. I was surprised. It's like, oh man, he's actually not competent's not the right word, but like watchable. Like the dance was, you could recognize the steps were quick steps.
Yeah,
like,
it was still like at a slower tempo, but like he did it.
Yeah,
that's like the highest praise I can give.
But yeah, poor Karamo. I feel like the worst thing about a rumba is that his biggest problem is like he has good rhythm a lot of times, but he does not have the technique. Yeah. And a rumba is a slower dance, so it's going to show every single problem with technique. And you know, if it's just not dialed in perfectly, so I'm really, really worried about that.
Yeah, like he didn't have that much hip action this week in the samba, so yeah, and I feel like Jenna might just prioritize going for like the sexy sultriness instead of, you know, actually hammering home the technique to make it work. So yeah, I don't have high hopes for him next week, but I don't know. I mean, like he did well last week, but that was the tango, and I think like that's more his speed and like his personality too. So yeah, because he also has to get into the character for this one.
Yeah,
yeah.
And he and Jenna don't have that kind of chemistry.
Yeah, it's weird because I feel like they're friends. Like I've watched interviews with them, and like they're fun with each other, but there's like nothing between them when they hit the floor.
No. And it's not just because like obviously he's gay and she's a woman.
No,
because we saw she had great connection with Adam Rippon. In the athlete season. So there's just some like disconnect between them. So I'm thinking either Karamo is maybe eliminated, or he'll conveniently break his wrist and then maybe be replaced by one of his sons, who are apparently like 20 years old.
That was like a wild story. Like I knew he had kids, but I didn't know like the backstory. And then it was just like, oh yeah, one day like my ex told me like I fathered a kid 10 years ago. And then, I mean, like it's great that like he stepped up and adopted him and like his half brother. But I was like, wow, we need like more background on this.
Oh yeah,
story.
Yeah. Like we need not just background. Like I want to see the whole Gilmore Boys kind of, you know, the TV series version of this. So going into next week, who are we thinking is the front runner to win? Joyce, where's your mind at? Is it still James? Is it Hannah? Is it, you know, because it seems to be going back and forth between them in our odds.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still James. Like I feel like he can handle whatever dance comes his way, and he can, like, being an actor, he can also adapt to the character in each dance. Like there hasn't been a dance from him yet where I'm like he could be uncomfortable, but like he still sells it, you know, whereas with Hannah, like she's a good dancer, but the character part is like her downfall. So, and like, you know, she still has that like pageant smile and everything. And next week she has the samba, so she needs to work on those hips too, but that'll fit her personality more because like she could be like fun and perky with it. Yeah.
She's good with technique if it fits her personality. Yeah. And I think she'll do well. She'll be the kind of person who I think will survive a samba.
Yes.
Yeah.
What do you think, Cordell? Who are you betting on?
Yeah, to Joyce's point, I think it's James. Competition to lose. He's the most well-rounded dancer in terms of all the different dance styles so far that we've seen. He has the personality. He's confident, but he's not arrogant or cocky.
Right.
You know, like a William Levy or Juan Pablo, where it was just this sense of cockiness, like, I'm the best dancer. I think for him, he just is able to use his acting skills, you know, in terms of selling the dance and just living in the moment with it, which is really hard for male celebrities because, you know, they, you know, are often very conscious about how they look on the dance floor and they want to look as masculine as they can and not, you know, soft and girly. Hannah, I think she's a great dancer, but I just feel like she's the producer's pet. They're going to just
like ABC.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, James also has his samba next week, so we can compare both of their stuff.
I loved how during the Aladdin clip package where they were like, "Oh, I love the movie Aladdin," and then when this happened, you know, Hannah was talking about her favorite scene, and then they cue it up and they say available on Disney Digital.
Exactly.
Oh my god.
Obviously, like, you know, Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, Lion King, they had to be the live action versions. Not the original.
Even when it's the same song that there would be the animated version, it's like, no, but this is from the live action version. This is what everyone remembers, right? This is how everyone remember these. I agree that James is probably out front. It's interesting to have a dancer who hasn't had the highest score since the first week, who still feels like the front runner just because of, you know, his general disposition, his level of his star level, because he is the biggest star in the cast. So he's got those votes. He's got the right attitude. He really feels like he's open to this experience and not above it all. You know, so it just
he announced like a pregnancy on the show, like seriously. A family gonna
and it really is showing a different side of him that most audiences probably don't know, like whether you know him as Dawson or you know him as the version of himself and Don't Trust the Bee, which is obviously a complete fabrication, or you know him from Pose, where he was a complete, you know, a-hole on that show for one season.
Or you know him from Rules of Attraction.
Speaking of complete a-holes, yes, he was playing another one there as well. That was his, you know, showing his range kind of show. Like, this is I'm not just Dawson kind of career.
For Varsity Blues, he wants this life. So, I mean, for all we talk about, like him getting underscored, I do think it sort of helps him that he hasn't topped the leaderboard since the first week, because it's not like he's completely fallen off a cliff and has been like terrible. Like, he's still within like a point or two of the top scorer each week. So it doesn't, like, he doesn't have this air of being like the want to be, even though we all kind of know he is, you know, but like it's not on paper. Like last year of like Tinashe or like Juan Pablo.
Yeah, they're giving him the breathing room where he can still be sort of the one who can improve, instead of just being the one everyone is chasing. A little bit reminiscent, although he's not getting as low scored, but Ivana Lynch last season, who I thought they were totally lowballing the beginning of the season, but they did give her that narrative of you're getting better and better. It's like, well, she is getting better, but your scores are also just catching up to what she's actually already good at. So I feel like they are giving him that room. So I do think we will. I feel like at one point the 10s are going to come out, and I feel like for James, they're probably going to stay out. Like there'll be a point where he just starts to kind of run away with some scores.
I feel like once they bust out the 10s, especially for him, it'll be hard not to like throw more at him, especially if he maintains the level at which he got the first 10.
Yeah. So, well, thank you guys for joining me, and thanks to everyone for watching or listening. You can make your own predictions at goldderby.com every week. Decide who will be eliminated, who will get the high score, low score, which judge will give the most points, which judge will give the fewest points. Usually Carrie, usually Len, in that order, but not always. So that's where you can rack up points in our predictions game. And we'll be back next week to talk about the 6th week of the competition. So we will see you then.